YouTube. So, the evil chased me out here, and I've been out here for about a week since. It hasn't really done much else to me. It sent some trees after me, but believe it or not, branches, not that hard to break. So, yeah, I have three theories on what it's doing. Either it's planning something, it's trying to kill me with pollen, or it doesn't know how to use a door. Either way, I'm honestly just getting kind of bored out here, so yeah, I'm gonna try and break back in. Alright, so much like with the first one, before we actually get into talking about the movie, let's get into the making of the sequel to The Ultimate Experience in Grueling Terror. After The Evil Dead, many members of the cast and crew went on to other things, the most notable being Crime Wave. After that film bombed and caused the young team many annoyances from studio interference, they decided to go back to the formula they knew worked with Evil Dead 2. Enter Dino De Laurentiis, who decided to fund the film after seeing the numbers the first one made and some convincing from Stephen King. Since the first, spoilers, ends with everyone dying, they had to think of a way around that in order to continue the story. They decided to slightly reboot it by having the first 5 minutes serve as a recap. This became complicated, however, when they weren't allowed to use footage from their own movie due to copyright, and I thought YouTube was bad. Their way around this was to just reshoot some scenes and only focus on Ash and Linda. Betsy Baker was offered to reprise her role as Linda, but was expecting her first child, so turned it down. Scott Spiegel is the one who took in a more comedic direction that has since become a staple of the series. Sam wanted it in a medieval setting, but due to budget restraints was only allowed to do so at the very end. The filming process was far less dangerous than the first time around, since they knew what they were doing more and had a bigger budget to work with. While it didn't make as much as the first, it still did very well, and was much less panned by critics than The Evil Dead was, which got a lot of hate due to the excessive gore. Evil Dead 2 has in many circles become the definitive Evil Dead film, as it has many memorable moments, was the first one that was comedic on purpose, and had an Ash that was more like the one we know and love. So, despite its major following, does this film still hold up? Or better yet, does it live up to The Ultimate Experience in Grueling Terror? I just really like saying that for some reason. So yeah, let's get into it and find out. So for the story, like I said before, there's a 5-minute recap, which has caused a bit of confusion amongst fans because, while yes, it does make sense if you know the history of it, if you don't, it's kind of weird. So it kind of made people wonder, did Ash take another Linda up to the cabin, or did the others even die? Which, yes, by the way, they did. If we look at the TV series, then, yeah, they do show that they did canonly die, especially emphasized when Cheryl actually makes a reappearance in the show, so, yeah, that did indeed happen. It's just kind of weird about the sort of events that transpired for it, mostly because their bodies aren't anywhere in this movie. I mean, yeah, okay, they did sort of turn into oatmeal and crap, but still, their clothes and that oatmeal and the snakes that were in them should be there, right? Or did Ash just, mop that up at some point? Guess he could have done that, but I don't know. I mean, I guess he wouldn't want to keep around the bodies. I mean, I'm sure they smelled bad, but still kind of raises the question, what exactly happened to them? You know, I mean, there are a lot of points in the first 5 minutes that can serve as a contradiction to, well, the first movie, which kind of makes this film a little bit hard to place canon-wise, but yeah, looking past the first 5 minutes, it pretty much picks off right after the first movie. And honestly, if you want to see these films combined, I would recommend checking out the musical, as it actually does combine the first and second movie very well, and actually makes them pretty seamless. So yeah, that's probably my definitive version of the canonicity of how these would have played out, even though some of that might be a little bit lenient, given that the second movie has contradictions to the first. But still, either way, Ash is chased outside, and the evil goes after him, and actually possesses him. And then doesn't, because the sun has driven the evil away. Yes, apparently Ash was right, that the day can stop the evil. I don't know how, it just can. And no, that does not remain for the rest of the series, as even in the last part of the movie, Ash falls into the medieval era, and there's a dead-eyed owl flying around during the day, so I don't know what happened there. He just magic survived. I don't know. They don't really explain it. It just happens. So, yeah, the evil is driven away. It's weird, and honestly is kind of a weird rule, but at the very least, the show does acknowledge this. Yeah, seriously, the show makes a joke about this. It's like, no, well, daylight doesn't really kill them. Well, okay, there was that one time that worked, and yeah, it's great that the show's met enough to do that. I love the show, by the way. One day I'll talk about it. That wonderful canceled show. But yeah, anyway, so Ash decides to, well, get the heck out of there, but remembers, oh yeah, the bridge is still out, and then it's nighttime. It was just morning a second ago. I have no idea how this happened. Either Ash was knocked out for way longer than it seemed, which would be kind of weird given that his head was submerged in water, so he would have, freaking died if that was the case, but I don't know, I guess somehow he magic breathed himself too, if he can magic survive getting possessed. Either that, or the evil manipulates the amount of daylight, which I guess could be the case, but if so, why don't they just do that all the time? Like, seriously, why even give him a moment of daylight? You already had him possessed. What were you waiting for? Did you just want to break his spirit even more by being like, haha, yes, the bridge is still out. Well, now he's really sad about that. Well, okay, yeah, now let's get on to attacking him. And yeah, that's pretty much what they do. A lot of this movie is just sort of Ash stuck in the cabin. He mostly uses that as a safe haven, and the evil, well, trying to either drive him mad, kill him, or get him to kill himself. Either intentionally or not. It's in these moments where what really makes this film work truly shines, and that being the horror and comedy, as yeah, this film does play up much more of the comedy, there is still some horror in here. Like, there are some creepy scenes, like, that scene with the rocking chair where Ash just puts out his hand and stops it, and it looks like he should have been touching someone sitting there, but there's really no one in the seat, and it's just kind of eerie little stuff like that I think does create kind of a creepy atmosphere. That and just overall sound design and direction from Sam Raimi just really add to the sort of isolation feel that it's going for. But also, it takes advantage of everything, and I do mean that. And honestly, it kind of works to me in the same sort of capacity as the Twilight Zone works. Now, okay, it's in a completely different mood and tone, but the reason why the Twilight Zone works to me is because it takes advantage of everything, and that's exactly what this movie does. It plays with everything in the cabin, from the cellar to a lamp to a deer head hung on the wall to a mirror, which, yes, they do play with the mirror more in this one, the first one, and the third. It's unfortunately until the remake that we don't have any fun tormenting from the mirror, and honestly, I really do wish that they did, because the mirror, I mean, come on, happens in every movie. Why'd you have to ruin a tradition? Maybe it'll happen the sequel to the remake. That'll happen someday. So, yeah, still, I will be waiting to see they do something with the mirror. So yeah, it takes advantage of every little thing in its environment, and that's mostly where some of the horror comes in, that and just overall the situation. But also the comedy is a major focus of this movie, as like I said before, Scott Spiegel did put in a more comedic direction, or at the very least he advised Sam Raimi to do that, because apparently he was more better suited to comedy. So yeah, it's actually kind of debated as to which one had more influence over the comedy, but we at the very least know that Scott Spiegel had a lot of influence over the hand scene, because he actually had a short film called Attack of the Helping Hand, wherein, yes, the Helping Hand mascot does attack and kill a woman, in case you were wondering. Oh, and also Bruce Campbell plays the hand in that. Why do I know these things? Just why? I don't. Okay, so yeah, it's kind of debated as to which one had more influence over the comedy in it, but I would like to think that they would at least have, like, you know, an equal amount, and at the very least, Scott Spiegel's the one who suggested that they go more that direction with it. And honestly, like I said before when describing the history, it's become a staple of the series. But this is really the first one that actually decided to use it, which was actually kind of a ballsy move, because when this movie came out, the first one was still seen as very taboo and still really extreme, given a lot of the gore and stuff. It might be silly looking now, but it was still being considered a bit of a video nasty back in the UK, which it was still banned in at the time. So, yeah, it still had a very, risque reputation. So, and it still does to this day, as there are some definitely, you know, kind of raunchy scenes in that movie, and just overall some really creepy moments in it. But this one did play up more of the comedy, and in a very good way to me. It mostly focuses on slapstick, which is really where a lot of the fun comes in, as in things in particular, like with the hand fight scene and stuff, it really does play more for laughs, and more feels like a Three Stooges episode if it just had, you know, some gore in it, which would make sense, given that Sam Raimi was heavily inspired by the Three Stooges, and it's also in moments like this where Bruce Campbell's physical acting really comes into play, which I'll get into more later, but let's just say he is fantastic in it. Anyway, while Ash is being tormented in the cabin, a girl named Annie Noby, who you might recognize as the daughter of Raymond Noby, aka the voice on the tape that keeps on saying an evil demon resurrection incantation out loud because he's an idiot, and her fiance, maybe? They never really say, but like in things like the musical, he's the fiance, so I'm just gonna say that he was her fiance. And so yeah, Annie and her fiance Ed decide to go into the cabin because they have now found some more passages from the Necronomicon. So yeah, it takes a while to guess which cabin they're going into. Anyway though, yeah, the bridge is still out, so they gotta find another way around. Thankfully, they have Jake and Bobby Joe, the ultimate Southern stereotypes, and yeah, they're pretty fun. As someone who's born and raised in Georgia, yeah, I can definitely see some aspects of them in a lot of people here. So, yeah, they go to the cabin, and, well, they kind of notice that Ash is kind of losing his mind, has just shot one of them with a shotgun by accident, and also has a bloody chainsaw over in the corner, and, yeah, Annie can't find her parents, so they decided to lock him in the cellar, you know, just for safe measure. So then they find out, though, that apparently Annie's dear late mom is actually in the cellar because she was possessed by a deadite, and this is where we're introduced to the wonderful and always awesome Ted freaking Raimi. Seriously, I will talk more about him later, but if you don't think that Ted Raimi's at least awesome in this movie, then please do reevaluate your life choices, because Ted Raimi is awesome. Seriously, he's a really fun actor. And he deserves to be in way more things. Seriously, I love Ted Raimi. He's just really great. Yeah, anyway, from there, they find out that, well, pretty much everything that Ash has been saying is true, and decide to let him up, while also trying to stop the Deadites, because they found out that inside those pages from the Necronomicon that Annie found, turns out that there's actually a way to dispel the evil. To send it back in time. Which I don't see why that would help exactly. Like, it could severely alter the timeline, butterfly effects, you ever hear of it? And, like, I don't see why, if we can't stop with this thing with modern weapons, why spears and swords will apparently be better against it. But, yeah, I don't know, some guy came from the sky, at least the book said so. So, yeah, he'll probably stop it. So yeah, anyway, so they pretty much spend the rest of the movie trying to dispel the evil. And so for the story, like I've already said, I really love the way this is executed, mostly through the horror and comedy. That's what really makes this film work so well, as it focuses on both aspects, whereas the other entries into the series sort of focus on either or. Like, The Evil Dead focuses more on the horror, whereas Army of Darkness focuses more on the comedy. And this one is the perfect balance in between those two, which kind of makes it great that it's in the middle there. I mean, like, you know, it's right in the middle, so, you know. It's a way that the strong suits of everyone involved is combined that really makes it work. And I really love the way that it's done here. Of course, there are some complaints that I would have about it, like there are some awkward line reads, workshed, and there are also some parts of it that I think could have worked a little bit better if they were more the focus, like Ash being locked up in the cabin alone. Because, well, yeah, that is still a lot of this movie. There's still another half hour where it's just sort of sitting around like, okay, we should read these passages. Just read the freaking passage, Annie. Seriously, Annie, she decides to just say what the passages are, like, 5 times, and, like, why? We know what they are, Annie. Just say them. It's seriously dumb when they are being attacked by an evil force, and she's just like, well, this passage unleashes the evil and makes it a thing of the flesh, but this one sends it back in time, and we know already. Seriously, it annoyed me so much. But, oh, and then there's also Annie doing that, which is just overall a huge minus to me. But still, overall, the story does focus heavily on, well, its strengths. It knows what to play up and what to downplay, and it really just sort of works off of the criticism that the first movie got. Some stuff is downplayed, while as other things are put more into focus, and I really do like the way that's handled here. So, for the story, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. So let's get into the part that I've been waiting to talk about, the characters. What in the world is going on? Okay, so for the characters, let's start off with Ash. So in this one, he's very different from the everyman who was forced to be a survivor from the first movie. Because in this one, he's already done that, but he still has no form of escape. He is still trapped in the cabin and just left to his own devices. And this time with no one to keep him company. So he's just left for his own mind to just sit there and just try and make it through the night. So he ends up going a bit crazy in this one, and this is kind of where we get to see more of the Ash that, well, everyone's become accustomed to. We get to see a bit more of the sarcastic a-hole that we all kind of know and love him as, but we also get to see a broken and very human side of him. He has had to kill his friends, his sister, and his girlfriend at this point, and it's all starting to take its toll, and that's all accumulated accumulating while there's still evil forces completely surrounding him and taking away any form of hope that he has. Even that he thinks that he might have a day to at least think of what to do, it's still taken away from him, if a bit weirdly, but still it's taken away from him. And he has no choice but to try and become a hero when other people are drawn into the situation too, which ultimately, despite his best efforts, he can't be. It's only until the third movie that he actually ends up saving anybody's life. Yeah, in both the first two movies, he is ultimately just left as someone who tried to do the good thing, but no matter what, couldn't, and was stopped, and everyone around him died. It honestly makes why he becomes such an a-hole in the next ones very understandable. He's been through all of this, and he just wants it to end at this point, and it ultimately never does because, well, him and the Deadites are destined to constantly fight each other. It's kind of like the Deadites are just his arch enemy that keeps on popping up over time. No matter when he thinks that he's done or gotten rid of them, they keep on showing up. And a lot of time it's actually caused by him making an army by mistake. So at a certain point, he does start to detach himself from people. And I really like seeing that character progression, which we'll get into more in the third movie, because, well, that's where it kind of all accumulates. But with this one, we truly get to see that being pushed a bit more. Like, we do still see the everyman in him, but we also see the broken everyman in him, as he's been pushed past his limit and has just had enough of this and wants to just get out of there. Maybe go reunite with Chet. TV show was great, and Ted Raimi is awesome, and we will talk about him later, but yeah. Another part of what really makes Ash work in this movie is Bruce Campbell's performance, because he does a great job playing both a broken man, but also a sarcastic a-hole a little bit, just in particular near the end, especially when Annie, keeps on thinking that he's a Deadite. I particularly love that scene, because it just sort of shows the most the Ash that we'll sort of all come to know, but really, another part of what makes Bruce's performance work is his physical acting, because Ash goes through a lot in this movie, and you would have to find a really good actor in order to portray the pain and just overall all the stunts of it, while also still showing that it's the same guy, not just a stuntman, and I think that Bruce Campbell does a great job with that. It again is all kind of shown the most in the hand fight, where he's doing flips just because Sam knew that he could do a flip there, and he's hitting himself with plates, and he just does the slapstick perfect in this movie, and since that's a big part of this film, it really does work, and I think that Bruce Campbell did a fantastic job in this role. Then there's Annie. She's fine. I don't hate her or anything. It's just, and I think that she actually has some pretty awesome moments, in particular when she's trying to fight a now Deadite turned Ash, but for the most part, she's just kind of she's just kind of a researcher, and that's kind of it. I mean, we get to see her feelings about the loss of her family and stuff, which gives her a greater connection to everything, but still, character-wise, there's not that much, but I think that her actress really does bring a lot to it, and I think that's what adds a little bit more personality to her, and she is still likable, and I do really think that she has some awesome moments here and there, but still, she's probably not my favorite female lead out of this series. That would go to Kelly. I mean, okay, out of the original series, she would probably be it, but still, if we're counting TV show, Kelly. And then we got Linda, in this version played by Denise Bixler, and I think that she does a really great job as the human Linda here. Like I said in my review of the first one, Betsy Baker, while I do think that she did a good job as the Deadite Linda, I just didn't really find her overly compelling as the human one. She which is very generic to me. And while this version of Linda isn't all that much different outside of adding an interest in ballet to her, I think that there's something about Denise Bickler's performance here that just really adds a lot more personality to it. She really makes it her own, even though it's essentially the same lines as Betsy Baker had. But there's just something about it that adds a little bit more personality to it, and I just think that she did a little bit better job as the human version. Now, whereas Deadite Linda is concerned, I think that she does a pretty decent job. I wouldn't say that she's as creepy as Betsy Baker was, but I still do think that she did a pretty decent job in just overall being slightly creepy while also playing off of the fact that, well, you know, there was a relationship and there's an emotional anchor for her to work off of, which is what she mostly plays around with, and I found her fun in that regard. Besides, there's always the fun of her headless body charging in with a chainsaw, which I guess she grabbed at some point just to, I don't know, do this eventually. Maybe she was gonna cut down the door because, you know, all Deadites are stopped by a door. Seriously, I don't get that. Why can't they just break it? The evil can break doors. We've seen it break doors. Why doesn't it do this more? But yeah, still, Linda in this one is fine, and we do get a little bit more to her. It's just that overall she's not my favorite, but I do still think that she does a really good job, and I think that Denise Bexler definitely did probably my favorite human version of Linda. Then there's Henrietta. Okay, so this is a bit hard to talk about, because we never really know human Henrietta. All that we ever know from her is that, well, she was apparently a very nice mother. That's very sweet and all, but amazingly not that detailed of a personality. So yeah, mostly what I'm gonna focus on when talking about her is Deadite Henrietta, which is, oh my god, so much fun. So much fun. I love Deadite Henrietta. She is so enjoyable in this because of Ted Raimi's wonderful performance through, like, I don't know, a ton of latex that he was wearing. That probably made him sweat during the whole entire production. And just made me feel really bad for Ted Raimi. Just like, wow, he's such a nice brother for stuffing him in so much latex. With things that you do for family, I guess, but still, this was kind of what started up his career a little bit, and I am so thankful for that, because Ted Raimi is an awesome actor. He is, he's very silly, he's very over the top, and he's just fun for that. That's what I love about him. It's really a shame that he isn't in the leading role in many things. I mean, he's had a few leading roles, like Lunatics: A Love Story, which I personally actually really enjoy. It's actually a really fun movie to me, but it's also gotten a lot of criticism, so it depends. Skinner, where he played a guy who skins people, shocker, and wears them, and kills people wearing them. So, yeah, so, that's amazing. Or where he played Chet in the TV show, or where he played Joxer on Xena, which, by the way, is pretty much the whole reason why I decided to watch Xena, just for him. Totally worth it, by the way. But, yeah, he's just a really great actor to me, and the way that he's able to work through so much latex and still convey so much personality is really great to me. Then there's Jake and Bobby Joe. They are essentially just some Southern stereotypes, but they're so fun in that they're Southern stereotypes. They are so over the top in that regard. Like, Bobby Joe is always swearing or spitting, and Jake was apparently a soldier. You can tell from the dog tag, so respect for that. But overall, he's just kind of a comedic character. That's kind of all that he's there for, is some comedy and a very interesting death where he apparently had like 10 times more blood than the human body ever should. So yeah, although I do still like that even on the TV show, they remember where his dead body was. Seriously, it's another reason why I love the TV show. Go watch the TV show. Something that we all should have done, or else then we would still have it. I missed that show. But, yeah, I still think that they are really enjoyable in this, just for how over the top they are in that respect. Then there's Ed. Ed's a bit hard to talk about because, well, let's just say the reason why his only song and only major part in the musical is Bit Part Demon. Seriously, he has a song where it's just being a bit part, and that's kind of all that Ed is. He's sort of there, he seems nice, kind of awkward, which I kind of like. They do add a little bit of personality to him, even though he doesn't really say much. But then when he becomes Deadite, he's fun. I mean, he can be pretty fun there, and that's probably his most iconic moments. It's just, I don't know, we don't really know that much about him. We don't, like, he's just not really interesting, and it's kind of a shame, because I think that, I don't know, his actor seemed to be really good in it, and I don't know, he seemed to be a fun character. I kind of want to know a little bit more about him, especially given his connection to Annie. I thought that someone like Bobby Joe would die before him, but nope, instead he's the first one to go out of the new group, and I kind of like how they played off of my expectation there. Seriously, these movies love playing off of my expectations. And then there's Raymond Noby. You may know him from literally every single tape recording that has ever been in any of these movies, because yes, he is exposition voice on the tape recorder, and that's kind of all that he is until you go into the TV show, which had a very weird version of him. Seriously, I'll never understand that. Like, he fed the Deadites, he worked for the... I don't know. It was a weird final episode. I don't know why they needed to do that, but whatever. It was a weird final episode to a great season, though. It's my favorite, and I don't know why I'm talking about the TV show so much. Anyway, though, Raymond Noby is just sort of there for exposition, but I do like how we can still get a little bit of emotion to him, and we do understand, like, him and Henrietta did have a very intricate past, and just sort of hearing just sort of how torn up he was about having to have killed her was really actually pretty good, and hey, at the very least, we do get to see him a little as a ghost. Why we never see a Deadite version of him is beyond me. I seriously don't get that. Seriously, well, why don't we ever see a Deadite version of him? Did he just, like, take his own life or something before the evil could or something? If so, where is his body? Seriously, we never find out what happened to this guy unless you count the TV show where he got killed by vines, but still. It's weird. Like, why is he just a ghost? Why is it that everyone else in this freaking cabin dies and becomes a Deadite except for him? What, is it just so then he could give more exposition? I don't get it, but still, as far as characters that are solely there to have exposition, it goes, he's fine, so yeah, I don't mind him or anything, and hey, at the very least, he does have some very iconic lines that are still being used to this day with things like the remake, so yeah, at the very least, he is still a very memorable character, despite not really offering that much outside of exposition. So, for the characters overall, I think I'm going to give them a 7. What is doing that? Out of 10. 7 out of 10. Yeah, so, because, I mean, while there are some of them that do have a lot of character and personality put into them, and would even go on to get even more later on down the line, there are still a lot of them that are pretty generic, but can be very fun in how generic they are, and that's part of why they work so well. So for this movie overall, it's my favorite Evil Dead film. Yep, told you guys I would tell you when it is, and this is it. But it was actually a while until this one actually became my favorite, because for a while it was actually the first one. I don't know, I just enjoyed the horror aspect of it more. But over time, this one started to get better to me. Every single time I would rewatch it, I would have even more fun, and I think that overall that's just sort of what goes into it to me. Because it is the definitive Evil Dead film. It showcases everything that makes the franchise work. The horror, the comedy, the slapstick, the characters, it all works perfectly, and it all just gels together just right. And while there are some parts of it that aren't my particular favorite, and some stuff could have been done better, and there are some particularly bad dubbing parts, like Workshed. Seriously, why do they need to dub in Workshed or Chainsaw? is beyond me. Like, we see the chainsaw shape. She runs in with the chainsaw. We know it's the chainsaw. Why do you need to tell us? It's uncalled for, but seriously, like, did Sam Raimi just think that we were really dumb for a second and was like, well, we gotta make sure they know it's a chainsaw? Like, I don't get that, but overall, it still is a great film to me, and while it's not my favorite horror film, it is actually on my top 10. I think it's in, like, my 5th spot, so, yeah, I actually do have an actual ranking over on Letterboxd, so, yeah. And it is on there. And there's a reason for it. It's a really great film, and it just encapsulates everything that works about the franchise. So, even if you haven't seen any other entry, this is the perfect one to start with because it gives you a recap as to what happens and pretty much encapsulates everything that makes the rest of the series work so well. And from there, I honestly think that's a pretty great way to go, because then you can expect really anything from this franchise. However, I of course started off with the first movie, and yes, there are some continuity gaps, and yeah, I don't really find the stuff with Annie and Ash and all that the most interesting. I mean, it's fine and all, I do still like it, it's just, compared to what we had with Ash going insane alone in the cabin, I preferred that a bit more. But overall, I do still very much enjoy this film, and the minor nitpicks that I have really do get outweighed by all the positives, from either the corny moments, or the really fun stuff, or some actually kind of creepy moments that works in there. So for this movie overall, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. And next time, uh, why? No, you don't. Oh, God, there's gotta be a better way to do this. Here, we got something. Where did I put it? Oh, yeah, it's on the desk. That's why it's always a good idea to have a Galapagos on hand. Get it on hand, because the hand... Puns are fun. Anyway, though, next time, Army of Darkness.